Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Wrestling Skull podcast, the presentation of our King of the Ring Retrospective Series. I'm your host, John Scott, joined as always by my co-host, Matt Essex, and we are finally here. We are hitting the final King of the Ring pay-per-view from 2002. Of course, way back in the machine. If for those of you that haven't listened to any of our King of the Ring retrospective series before, you can easily go back on all, well, which will all be 10 now that we've got in total. You can go back on the last 9 as well and go through with us, experience with us as you watch it if you haven't seen any of them. And you can do that by simply just subscribe to the Wrestling Skull podcast, and you'll automatically have every retrospective episode from the King of the Ring. And when we do this King of the Ring, maybe you're a first time listener to this kind of stuff, or you do listen to our regular show, but this is obviously slightly different. What we do is we sit through King of the Ring and we kind of give you you guys a commentary. We had some great feedback to those that just like to have it on mute or a little bit of sound. I always recommend a little bit of sound because you want to hear some of what's being said. And you guys will just literally pop your headphones. A lot of people listen to just one earphone sort of plugged in their ear the entire time. And yeah, you guys seem to have enjoyed the experience along with myself and Matt. And now it's time to introduce Matt to 2002. Matt, before we start, any sort of like memories before we hit play on this one of King of the Ring 2002 for you?
Well, no, 2002 is a bit of an obscure year for me when it comes to this kind of thing, because we had the brands kind of like going their separate ways and that, and I was kind of more of a Raw kind of guy, so the SmackDown kind of side of thing kind of eludes me a little bit, because I did miss the odd SmackDown here and there, so I wasn't that up to date with it.
Okay, guys, well, what we do is we're going to give you guys the normal countdown on the literally on the count of 1, we all press play and you guys can join us to watch this King of the Ring 2002. So here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we're off. And I think we're getting some... so far we're getting a little bit of highlight clips from the past, well, all the ones we've practically watched really, Matt, haven't we? This is a little bit of a glimmer. I've noticed they've skipped Mabel. I noticed that. Did you notice that there, Matt?
Yeah, well, the most unremarkable King of the Ring, and I think they even knew that back then.
Yeah, that's interesting that they and they've also flipped out 98 and 99, so that goes to show you something as well, doesn't it? About our past winners there. Just watching Edge, who of course would have won it on our last one, and Matt, pretty much just to give everybody a sort of time period of where we are. We're in a time now, Matt, where WCW, I know last time was a big part of our conversation on the invasion angle, but now we're in a time where WWE has practically got most of, shall we say, the better WCW talent over. There's still a couple of names that haven't come in yet, but for the most part, those names are there. And also, Matt, the invasion angle has come to a complete end, and what we have now is the first ever brand extensions where we had Raw and SmackDown split up for the first time, and it was it was a pretty big thing at the time. We had general managers on each show, which was Bischoff on Raw, and I think it would have been Stephanie on SmackDown, and this was the King of the Ring to go with it. So here we go. We're hoping for our last one that we're going to enjoy it. Oh, first thing I'm going to say, Matt, is I'm noticing it's the same layout as the year before. Is that chair? Well, I said this was my favourite, and they put it on a year later as well. So there you go. And as we go into this one, Matt, I mean, we are at the end of our King of the Ring. It's definitely our 10th one. Amazing to think we got this far this year. I did say to everyone we'd get them out, and finally we are. Going to say this straight off the bat, Matt. We do have a return of Jerry the King Lawler. I have seen his name just pop up somewhere before he has. So he's talking. Yeah, WWE.
Constant.
Yeah, apart from one. All apart from one. As he's now up on the screen, of course, with Jim Ross. It's worth pointing out for everybody just a couple of little facts on this one. It was from Columbus, Ohio. I believe that the attendance 14,198. And here we go, the sponsors, Matt. How about this? Snickers Cruncher.
Well, no, I don't remember that.
No.
That product, you know, as much as I like Snickers, no, I don't remember that one.
No, neither do I. Well, Chris Jericho about to come out to this one. And it's worth pointing out as well that this King of the Ring match, similar to last year, starts from the semi-finals. So, again, gone off the days of the quarter-final period, on this last one. Matt, do you think, watching this King of the Ring, obviously we're not going to get another King of the Ring after this. We know it finishes up this year. Do you think there's any sort of main reason as to why WWE might have felt it wasn't the way they wanted to go? Because, one thing I will say with this one, unlike any of the other ones, Matt, this had, if you won this King of the Ring, the opportunity was you went to SummerSlam to face the heavyweight champion at the time, which I thought was a pretty good idea because it gave a little bit more incentive to get the victory and sort of escalate the guy even further and quicker. But as we see the sort of league table there, the playoff table come up, so you can see all the participants in it. What was your sort of take in as to why we didn't get any more of these pay-per-views, Matt?
Yeah, it's kind of a mystery because, you could be saying that it was getting a little bit stale, and some of the stars that they were trying to make stars out of this weren't living up to their potential. But when you look at this one in particular, it did a good job of reinventing itself, because I think a number one contender shot is a lot better, like you said, of making a star. So I don't really see why they phase it out after that. I mean, it's quite similar to the Royal Rumble in that respect, that you get the title shot and it's something, an accolade under your sort of belt, other than winning a title belt. But yeah, I kind of wish they did continue it. I mean, I know they did the odd kind of thing in here and there on a Raw, but it was never really the same, was it?
No, not at all. I think that those were totally dampened the effect, especially with some of the people that were. I mean, we had, of course, King Booker come out of that, but that was basically just a gimmick change, wasn't it? That's the reason they had it. Couldn't have been for anything else, because Booker T had already been was an established star, so that made sort of zero sense to do that. But here we go.
It was a killer for some of them, that gimmick. Killer for King Sheamus.
King Barrett.
That
one. As we start on this first match, Matt, we got Chris Jericho, Rob Van Dam. Looks good on paper, I would say. And this is a time where Rob Van Dam was very, very much, like I spoke last time, how popular this guy was when he finally did arrive. He wasn't in our last King of the Ring because, of course, he debuted at the Invasion pay-per-view. But he was very popular around this kind of time as a mid-card floater. And, I'm going to say this right off the bat, Matt. I remember this pay-per-view quite well. And I remember who I thought was going to, I thought was tipping, that I thought was going to actually win this. And my call was Rob Van Dam this night. Because he was on a real roll of things. And he had a ton of momentum. So, to me, they've done a pretty decent job of kind of like making, I'd say, three of these guys at least potential winners on the night, let's say. Because Chris Jericho, of course, by this point had, of course, done his big, he'd come off his sort of big stint of 2002. I mean, from this point, when we look at Jericho's career path, Matt, was this a time where he had to kind of go backwards somewhat?
I guess you could see it that way, because it is a little bit like where he had such a kind of rapid ascent, and then, it just really wasn't paying off. I mean, as good as the guy is, in the ring and on the mic, something just really wasn't coming together. Sure. I don't know what it was. I think they didn't really back him as hard as they should, because I would have definitely said this guy's got every kind of talent under the sun. Yeah. Let's just go with him. But I think they're looking at like The Rock and Austin and thinking, he's just not drawing a crowd like they can. But then who could?
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with that. This one's so far pretty decent pace to the match. Again, Rob Van Dam, when I talk about being over the crowd, this guy was super over when he was a heel. That's how over he was. And I suppose, Matt, we forget sometimes with Rob Van Dam how kind of unique he was at the start. Like, a lot of people, fans in WWE, were not used to seeing somebody like Rob Van Dam doing the stuff he does as regular as he does, which in a lot of ways kind of worked against him in the long run as well.
Yeah, I mean, like nowadays we take it totally for granted someone that can do all the things that he did, but back then, okay, yeah, they were starting to do a lot more of that, particularly like when we've seen stuff that was happening on WCW.
Mm-hmm.
But for WWE, he was still kind of like treading new ground with this kind of style.
Sure.
And it was a bit of a shame when he got to WWE. Some of his moves were limited, but I'm glad they did let him keep a lot of his kind of original moves, like the Van Terminator, and because. And the fact that they put him into the hardcore kind of area, I mean, I know it's a natural fit coming from ECW, but it's kind of the only reason. Like, if they didn't have the hardcore division at the time, it would have been really hard for him to shine.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So yeah, pretty decent start to the match as Rob Van Dam just done that amazing stunt there, and now we're going to see him go to the top. Quite a nice opener, I would say, to this pay-per-view to have these two guys on. As your first bill.
What a fiasco that was.
The referee. It's almost like he lost what he was doing there to a certain extent as well. There's Jericho going up as well. Again, it's always incredible to see Chris Jericho, who of course is so active on the current roster that we watch now. Of course, seeing him here, the guy had been already wrestling for so long.
He's a definite once-in-a-generation kind of wrestler. Like, it's hard-pressed to find anyone that works as hard as he does, has the mic for wrestling that he does, he has every skill going, and, it's so hard to find a wrestler so well-rounded like that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. What are you making of the match between these two? Do you think they match up quite well?
Oh yeah, bound to. I mean, just on paper, you look at these two guys and you think, well, there's no way they couldn't possibly mesh very well because they're so complementary of each other's styles. And no doubt these guys have probably fought each other before, so I'm sure they've got previous experience to draw upon.
Yeah, everything seems really well done considering what they're doing. A lot of these things can go wrong and look quite bad at times, especially with RVD's style. It's you literally, your opponent has to be able to manage to take it and sell it well. As now Jericho is taking a turnbuckle off, spot that we don't always get so much of these days, but always been used. Funny to see that. And now what, we've got a little bowl up but no ref. Like, the ref looked like he had absolutely no chance of getting that back on at all. When Rob Van Dam sells stuff, it looks like the guy is like literally dead sometimes, like the way he does it. It really, it's kind of like a Dolph Ziggler kind of selling job there.
He's doing all the dirty moves in the book here.
Yeah. I would say arguably these two guys, like I said at the beginning of this, these two guys, I would say, are both kind of nicely set up, maybe perhaps to win a King of the Ring. There's no doubt about it. Even though Jericho had kind of done his stuff by now, I still think there was room. Because of what changed the idea for me was all I was thinking about was the winner goes to SummerSlam. And Jericho, out of all these guys, was the one guy that had already been there at one time or another. So I always